Now we'll move on to item 6, public hearing, please.
Item 6A, hold a public hearing, waive second reading, and adopt an ordinance updating the Building and Fire Code.
Director Smith.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Darcy Smith. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director, and I'll be making the presentation tonight on this item, which is the public hearing and waiving the second reading for adoption of the 2019 Fire and Building Code ordinances by reference with local amendments. So the objective is, the first thing I'll cover, then I'll move into a quick background, as this was before you at the last regular City Council meeting on August 25th. I'll provide an overview of the ordinances that are before you tonight for adoption and end with tonight's action and time for questions. And the objective, as I stated earlier, is to hold the public hearing, waive the second reading, and adopt the Building and Fire Code ordinances. And there was a large number of city staff who worked on these items as part of a special projects team. So later, after my presentation, if there are any technical questions about the codes, they may be most appropriately answered by Roy Bernald, our chief building official, who's in attendance tonight, or Gage Slice, the fire marshal, who is also here. And I want to take a moment to thank special assistance from the planning team in the report preparation and the city attorney, Mark Zaffarano. So I'll cover the background pretty quickly, but I just wanted to point out the special sequencing for this item because it is a little bit unusual. So as I mentioned, this is the second meeting in a two-part meeting. On August 25th, the City Council took the first step to hold the first reading and introduce the ordinances and adopt the associated resolution. But tonight is the public hearing. Typically, the public hearing may come first, such as for planning applications or the zoning code amendments. But why the public hearing is required as the second step for adoption of the codes by reference is because of the government code section 50022.3. And this is a unique procedure because it's an adoption of the codes by reference, and those are state codes. So this usually only happens 3 times a year. So just a quick refresher on the sequence, since it is pretty rare, or I should say every 3 years, not 3 times a year. Sorry. So every 3 years, the State of California Building Standards Commission adopts these new codes. And again, as I covered them, there's multiple parts in very voluminous binders, commonly referred to as Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations. And again, they apply across the state, and they're applied every 3 years. If for some reason they need a little bit of adjustment, they'll have a mid-cycle adjustment. But typically, given all the work that local governments have to make, such as you saw with these 2 meetings, they don't like to change them that often. So what are these codes? Really briefly, they're related to design and construction for private property largely, and they relate to how the building is built, the structural elements, the plumbing and electrical and mechanical systems, addressing some really important topics now, such as fire and life safety, energy conservation, green or sustainable building design, and then accessibility, so ADA access in and around buildings. Commonly, they're referred to, as you see here, the 2019 California Building Codes. As I mentioned previously, there's many different parts of that code that address different topics, and they went into effect automatically statewide January 1st, and we have the opportunity to adopt local amendments if we have unique climatic, geological, or topographical conditions that I went into more detail, and we actually here have all of those. We have steep slopes, we have a lot of fog, dense fog that impairs visibility, and we also have other kind of unique constraints here. So how does local implementation work? Well, we're required, again, by state law to enforce these codes when we issue building permits. So these largely affect private property and all the practitioners who work in private construction, such as contractors, architects, other design professionals. They gear up learning these codes, again, because they apply statewide, and we have been requiring our local building permits to comply with them. So what do they address? Well, you see examples here of the types of construction, such as solar, new vertical construction, or new underground construction, as you see on the right. And we have been applying these successfully with no major issues. Again, I think the state takes a lot of leadership in this area around building and fire codes that make our job at the local level easier because they are statewide, and the state rolls out a massive training and education effort, which then relieves the burden on us. So we're able, for example, to quickly update our website with a lot of resources. And we're also able to train our staff in a very cost-effective manner around these new codes. So I'll briefly give you an overview of the ordinances, and notable, just to point out that there's 7 ordinances, but each of those ordinances amends a different chapter. So as you see here in this little screenshot of our website, we're sort of amending the first part of the Title 11. For example, we're amending the local building code, local energy code, and the local fire code. But what we are not touching, I just want to reassure everyone, is our local adopted unique codes, such as our new floodplain management requirements that were adopted last year. So those will remain in place. And again, we're adopting the state codes by reference and minor local amendments. And we have no new local amendments for the building codes. We're just readopting everything that was done last year. But I just want to pause and really point out one key thing that really took a lot of leadership and work by our fire marshal. Is that we're kind of modernizing our local fire code. And what it was previously called was the International Fire Code, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. So our fire marshal spent a lot of late nights just reformatting the chapter. No dramatic change, but it's something that I just want to pause to say how proud we should be that we now have the San Bruno Fire Code that has improved formatting and readability, and that's in line with the efforts that the city manager has undertaken to go through the different titles and modernize them. So as I mentioned previously, we're a unique city that we have unique weather, we have unique geographical and topographical conditions, as you see here, and as we've just experienced in our city recently. So we do have the right that the state gives us to have local amendments. They are very minor, and one of the only new one that you're faced with tonight is around the signage for first responders. And the state does require this signage, but it doesn't actually specify the exact size. And so what our local amendment would do is provide very specific and clear requirements for local signage to ensure consistency when our first responders go out if there are hazardous materials on site. So in closing, tonight's action before you is pretty simple. It's to open and close the public hearing, hold that, waive the second reading, and adopt the 2019 Fire and Building Code ordinances by reference with local amendments. And if they are adopted, then they would go into effect 30 days from tonight. And sort of the main changes that we would be then cleaning up our website and ensuring we have the most recent codes referenced there for the public to use. So that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions for myself or the other staff available tonight who are the subject matter experts, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for presentation. This is a public hearing. So at this time, if anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this topic, if you could please be identified, and the city clerk will bring you in.
I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing. So once the council closes it and brings it back to the council, that will be concluded at that point. Still seeing no hands up from our audience. Do we have action to close the public hearing, please?
Through the chair.
Move to close public hearing.
I'll second.
Medina Salazar, motion made, seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Linda, council member, to close the public hearing? I didn't hear your vote. Council member Mason, are you approving to close public hearing?
Councilmember Mason, I'm having trouble unmuting you.
Councilman Mason, how about just a thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm not sure she can hear us, actually. I think she's having technical difficulties.
Okay.
the motion would carry, as is.
Okay, why don't we, so what we'll do at this point, and thank you, City Clerk, so questions from my colleagues or staff? Councilmember Mason, your hand is up?
I'm trying to contact her now. I'm not sure if she knows she can hear us right now.
Okay. Any other, I'm not seeing any other hands up from other colleagues.
I'll make a motion to waive the second reading.
Is there a
And
second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. A motion made and seconded to waive the second reading. Roll call, please.
Okay, we do have Councilmember Mason back. Just one moment here. So there was a motion made by Vice Mayor Salazar and Councilmember Davis.
To waive the second reading.
Yes, Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Mason, if you could hear us, can you give us a thumbs up? Okay, I think we lost her again. Okay, Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar,
Aye.
Mayor Medina,
Aye.
motion carries. Okay,
Okay, and then the last action item on this would be adopt the ordinance. Any action from council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Mason, can you hear us? Okay, Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar,
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Okay, so that concludes the public hearing. Before we move on to conduct of business, maybe we can take a couple minutes so we can get Councilmember Mason
That
connected
would be
back.
great. Thank you. I'll call her again. Thank you.
So folks, we'll take about a 5-minute recess. City Manager, are we ready?
Ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, City Clerk, are we ready to begin?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call back from the recess of the San Bruno City Council meeting of September 8th. We had some technical difficulty under the public hearing, and I'd like to go to Councilmember Mason. We already did vote, but would you like, for the record, to have your vote so that it can be acknowledged, the yay or nay on the items of the closing the public hearing, waiving the second reading, and the adoption of the ordinance?
Yeah, I just have I did have one question for Director Smith.
Oh,
And thank you for your patience in accommodating me, Mayor.
Of course.
My question is just in going through the fire code, it's definitely one I'm not familiar with. Well, I should say this entire section. And so my question in this particular area is, are these only updates that were provided after this 3-year review, or did the city also make additional changes based on local city recommendations?
So we only made one local change to the fire code, which was to adopt more specific clarity for the hazardous material signage, the little picture that I showed. That's the only local change that's new this cycle. Previously, there were other local amendments, such as, for example, the illuminated address sign, and that was adopted 3 years ago and will remain in effect.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to vote yes, so thank you.
Mayor Medina, you're muted.